We have Christina Ianniciello, the Executive Director of Clean Transportation at the Ministry of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation. She heads the bureaucracy that tries to help the politicians get to where they need to go in a smart and efficient way, such as the joy of being on staff. So, without further ado, and I'll mention one other thing. We're going to leave the mics off, and we're going to take questions in the chat. And then when Christina's finished, Heather has agreed. Heather, our lovely Vice President, will agree to read off the questions to Christina, and we'll go through them. So, without further ado, Christina Ianniciello.
Yes, so as Glenn said, I'm Christina Ianniciello, and I'm speaking to you today from the territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, also known as the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations. And yeah, just grateful for the lessons that I've learned since moving out to this region almost 20 years ago now, and in particular, just the value of the interconnected ecosystems. And that's part of what led to my passion in getting involved in the electric vehicle space and working on electric vehicle policies and programs over the years. And it's always fun to chat with EV owners, particularly the ones in your association, because I remember when I started working in this space back in 2007 or 2008, within a few years, I met some of you who are the original EV owners in British Columbia. So it's kind of fun to be chatting all these years later and just reflect on how far the market has come, and in no small part thanks to the efforts of folks like yourselves and these EV owner groups who have done so much work to increase awareness across the province, and also point out to us where we need chargers and what we can do on programs and that kind of stuff. So what I thought I'd do today is just run through the province just recently published the zero emission vehicle update for last year, for calendar year 2022. And so I thought I'd run through that today, but then leave quite a bit of time at the end for any questions that you have about our programs or what's coming down the line. So just a bit of context, the way we, sorry, I'm losing my words here. The way we design and implement our efforts to transition the transportation sector to zero emission vehicles is we take a market transformation approach, where essentially we have a suite of programs and then some regulatory measures that are all about addressing the barriers and taking advantage of opportunities to shift from gasoline and diesel in the transportation space to electricity and other clean fuels. So the main barriers that we're trying to address in this space are awareness, affordability, infrastructure, vehicleability, skills training, and then the opportunities all around job creation as well. So you'll see as you go through the suite of Go Electric programs, all the sub-programs are essentially designed around addressing those barriers. So this is the full list of offerings under the Go Electric program, and for more information you can go to the Go Electric site. So our flagship program is the light duty vehicle rebates, but then there's a whole host of other programs around addressing the infrastructure and awareness barriers. So we have programs that the Go Electric program funds public charging infrastructure. We offer rebates for home, workplace, and fleet charging, rebates for medium and heavy duty vehicles, and then specialty vehicles. So everything from e-bikes all the way up to school buses and heavy duty trucks. We also fund support for fleets to do business cases to adopt zero emission vehicles and install infrastructure in their facilities. We provide funding to training institutes like colleges to upgrade or to expand their automotive technician training to include zero emission vehicles. We provide funding to support electrician upskilling in the infrastructure space. And then we provide funding to research universities to support post-secondary training in the ZEV space and research and development that then informs some of our policy work, but also technology development in BC. And then we also provide funding to supporting the zero emission vehicle sector development in BC, increasing public awareness. And then, that list of programs is really focused on addressing the demand side of vehicles, and the big instrument that we use to ensure there's sufficient supply of electric vehicles coming to BC to meet that demand is the Zero Emission Vehicles Act and regulation. So I've just, taken a sample of the highlights from the ZEV market update from 2022. So great news, in 2022, light-duty ZEV sales represented just over 18% of all new light-duty vehicle sales in BC. And I was just taking a peek at our data before this call, and it looks like in the Victoria region, about 25% of all new light-duty vehicle sales were EVs in 2022. So that's impressive. We've come, a long way, and we have the highest ZEV uptake rates in Canada. Last year, we were the highest in North America. This year, California squeezed us out by 0.5%. So maybe we'll take them over again next year. But yeah, as of the end of December, there were over 100,000 light-duty ZEVs registered in BC as of December 31st, 2022. And if you go back just over 10 years ago, December 2011, I think, when we, started working the earlier iteration of this kind of programming, I think it was something like 10 EVs that, had just come into BC. So pretty neat to see that growth in 10 years. And then at the end of 2022, we had over 3,800 public charging stations in BC. So yeah, nice to see that growth. In terms of the passenger vehicle rebate program, I have some numbers up here, but really want to talk about the main change that we implemented last year in the passenger vehicle rebate program was to transition the program such that eligibility for rebates is now based on income levels. So we increased the highest rebate that people can get up to $4,000 for battery electric vehicles, $2,000 for shorter range plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And then the rebate levels decrease based on someone's income. And this essentially allowed us to direct funds to those in the sector who really needed it most. And that's part of that sort of transition. As we see higher uptake and more people able to afford EVs, we then direct rebate funds to those that need a bit more support to adopt EVs. The other change in the vehicle rebate program last year is that recognizing some of the larger trucks and SUVs coming into the market, we split our MSRP vehicle price caps in the program into two categories. So the smaller vehicles and then the larger vehicle category. So again, that allows us to support some of the newer, more expensive, or newer market, I'd say, models of vehicles coming in the SUV and truck space. On the Go Electric commercial vehicle rebates, we have a few different offerings there. So I'd say it's divided into two main programs. One is the program that offers post-purchase rebates for people buying anything from e-bikes to delivery vans and school buses, and that's just a straight the customer or fleet purchases a vehicle. Once they purchased it, then they apply for the rebate. The other program is the Commercial Vehicle Pilots Program, and that's a competitive application-based program where companies apply and receive up to 1/3 of total project costs. And the total project costs can include the purchase of the vehicles and infrastructure. And what's interesting about that program is there's a data component to it. So successful applicants have to track their vehicles and report that information back. And it's all about, so it's essentially pilot projects that are all about informing the market development and developing lessons learned for other fleets that might want to adopt medium and heavy duty ZEVs. So we've seen, what's neat about last year is that we did see growth in medium and heavy duty vehicle rebates issued compared to previous years. Supply in that sector is a bit of a challenge, but it's nice to see, from 2021 to 2022, we had over a doubling of rebates issued, Go Electric rebates issued for on-road medium and heavy duty vehicles. The other interesting thing is that we're seeing much greater uptake of electric school bus purchases in the province. So since 2020, the Go Electric program has supported a total of 72 electric school buses. I know we were talking about public charging earlier. So some of you might know the province in its roadmap to 2030 committed to have a geographically connected charging network for 2024, and then 10,000 public charging stations by 2030. So, we're actively tracking and making decisions on where funding goes to, in particular, meet that 2024 target, also with a view to meeting the 2030 target. The annual update report included this map that shows, what we call the connected highways for the core network in BC right now. And as folks commented earlier, there's still some gaps to get up to the Yukon. And those are things that, we'll be working on over the next year or so, year to 2 years, as we aim towards that 2024 target. But, on the positive side, we're seeing, every year that charging infrastructure network grows, and in regions such as, the Lower Mainland and Southern Vancouver Island, we're seeing increased densification of charging stations. On home, workplace, and fleet charging rebates, we have a couple programs there. We offer rebates that are offered through our utilities for home and workplace chargers. And then we also have, as I mentioned earlier, the fleet charging rebate program. So again, huge uptake in those programs over the past year. One thing that's interesting is we're starting to see some good outcomes from the EV Ready plan funding that we have in those programs, and then the EV Ready charger rebate, sorry. So we have here at the end of 2022, about 2% of the roughly 15,000 MERV buildings in BC have EV Ready plans. So it sounds small, but we did just get started. And so I think that's, that's showing good success. And there's a lot of interest in that program from MERVs throughout BC and actually from other jurisdictions. And then the number of EV Ready stalls has increased significantly since 2021. On skills training, last year, the pilot programs that were originally developed for light duty vehicle ZEV automotive technicians at BCIT expanded to more colleges around the province, including Camosun. And so to date now, there have been over 300 automotive technicians who have completed the electric vehicle maintenance training program at various colleges throughout BC, and then over 300 electricians who have been trained through the electric vehicle infrastructure training program in BC. On the public outreach side, and you folks are well familiar with this, we've supported again a number of community-led outreach events across the province, and developments of videos, ride and drives, brochures, information material, and we're seeing really good success in funding community-led organizations or local governments or Indigenous nations to support their efforts in increasing EV awareness in their communities. So you can see last year our public outreach funding supported over 200 events, over 8,000 test drives, over 50 outreach videos, which have been a really key part of increasing awareness across the public. And then, so on the economic development side of things, there are almost 300 companies in BC that operate in the zero emission vehicle space. And, they're a big contributor to our provincial economy. So in terms of direct full-time jobs, those companies employ close to 7,000 people. And the sector contributes over 1 billion in GDP towards the economy. So we do have a program that supports ZEV sector economic development in BC. It's the Go Electric Advanced Research and Commercialization Program. And since 2018, that program has supported more than 21 projects to either hire people or develop technology that's BC based. Okay, so the last bit is the Zero Emission Vehicles Act and ZEV regulation, and this is really the piece of legislation that ensures that automakers are bringing electric vehicles to British Columbia. And I think a lot of you are familiar with the challenging global supply constraints right now in the automotive industry more broadly. Things like the ZEV Act and ZEV regulation, place a regulatory requirement on automakers that has the effect of attracting or ensuring there's a portion of very limited global supply that makes it to BC. So the ZEV Act and regulation is in place right now, and Roadmap 2030 committed to increase the target such that 26% of light-duty vehicle sales in BC are ZEVs by 2026, 90% are ZEVs by 2030, and 100% are ZEVs by 2035. And Victoria EV Association provides some good comments to us on our consultation paper. I think that we issued, I'm getting lost in the dates now, but I think last summer or through the fall. And so, we've taken those inputs and are working on the amendments to the regulation. The other commitment in the roadmap was to introduce medium and heavy duty ZEV targets. So we're anticipating issuing a consultation paper on that in the coming weeks, which of course Victoria EV Association will be a recipient of that paper. And what these regulations do is, at the end of the day, they provide consumers with more choice of vehicles. It ensures that there's vehicles available to meet the increasing demand for ZEVs in a variety of models and prices. And it provides regulatory certainty for achieving our Clean BC targets. So that's all I had. Hopefully, I know it's a lot to digest. There's lots of programs and things that we're working on, but maybe I'll open it up for questions from folks, and I will, while I do that, I will stop sharing so I can see people.
Okay, Heather, how about we kick off?
Okay, I'll start at the top of the list here with the questions. We've got a few. First one, Christina, is Clean BC synonymous with Plug-in BC, or if not, how are they affiliated, or are they?
So it's not synonymous. So Clean BC is the government of British Columbia's term for all of the policy and programs and strategy related to climate action and clean energy. And so, the Clean BC Go Electric program falls under that. Plug-in BC is a program of the Fraser Basin Council, who are an environmental not-for-profit organization. And we do, in the Go Electric program, we do work with them. So they are one of our delivery partners. They deliver the Motive Outreach Awareness program on our behalf. They also deliver the public charger program. I'm going to end up missing some of the things that they deliver, but they deliver a whole slew of programs on our behalf, and we work with them very closely. The Fraser Basin Council, was one of the initial partners that the province worked with in helping build awareness for EVs around BC and start deploying charging infrastructure. So they've been involved in this space for a very long time.
David Collins asks, where would you say we are at on the market transformation approach graph?
We're still considered at the early market stage because, although our sales are, roughly 20%, and 25 in the Victoria region, if you look at stock percent, we're still, below 10%, although I think we're getting close to 5% right now. So that's still, even though we see EVs all over the place now, we're still considered at that more earlier market stage. That being said, we're seeing a lot of really rapid uptake now. And I think, the market conditions are right between the regulatory measures and the various demands and just customer interest out there for EVs, that you'll see we're at a stage getting pretty close to a tipping point on that market transformation curve where you'll see uptake increase rapidly every year.
Are the truck rebates based on GVWR, or in other words, the heavier the truck, the higher the purchase price allowed?
Yes. Based on GVWR and the type of vehicle that it is. And I should clarify, under the Go Electric commercial rebates, we are looking at switching soon within the coming months to getting more specific based on which class of vehicle. So like class 2B through to 8, and those are all aligned with gross vehicle weight ratings.
With the BC ZEV sector 274 companies, where do they spend that 1.5 billion in the 1.15 billion in the province or outside the province percentage?
That's all their direct contribution to the province's economy, so within BC.
Does the ZEV numbers include hybrids?
It includes plug-in hybrids, not non-plug-in hybrids.
Question for a Clean BC guest. Given we have some fairly aggressive deadlines in 2030, 2040, and 2050 regarding EV transition from ICE vehicles, given we are 18.1% uptick in EVs to 2022, is CleanBee concerned at this rate that more may be needed to accomplish the goals? Any thoughts of significantly increasing carbon tax at pumps to pay for more EV uptake infrastructure?
I'd say no. So in the work that the analysis that we did for the Zero Emission Vehicles Act that sets those targets of, annual targets leading up to 100% EV sales by 2035, we get third-party forecasts that we purchase. And one of those forecasts that we purchase is from an organization that is getting supply chain data from the automakers. So it's getting, what their forecasts are, but then it's also getting supply chain inputs from like critical mineral sources and components for the vehicles. In those forecasts, in the high and average scenarios, those forecasts predicted that industry would be able to comply with the ZEV Act targets, i.e. we'd be able to hit the 90% by 2030 and 100% by 2050. 2035 targets. There was one scenario, the low uptake scenario, where we start to fall short in 2030. But again, our assessment based on the different policies and programs that this government has in place between the Go Electric program and the regulated ZEVAC targets are, I think we have the right instruments in place to reach those targets. And they have been shown to be producing results. It's a year over year.
Thanks. Does the BC government consider an EV with a brand new replacement battery a new vehicle or a used vehicle?
In what context is that?
I don't know. I guess somebody's replacing their battery with a brand new battery for, say, a Nissan Leaf or something.
Okay, so if we're talking about new vehicle sales, we wouldn't consider that a new vehicle sale. Like that wouldn't factor into our tracking of what our percent sales uptake. Sorry.
Don's asking, BC's GHG inventory shows that emissions from cars has decreased slightly, but those reductions are swamped by increases in light duty trucks, including SUVs. Is the province contemplating any initiative that will reduce the emissions from trucks without addressing this? Light duty trucks and SUVs will continue to push emissions upwards of EV take-ups as a gas guzzlers will be around for 20 years.
Yeah, so that's part of the rationale behind some of the new commitments and the province's roadmap to 2030 that was released, I guess, almost a year and a half ago now, October 2021. And so some of the new commitments in there were around supporting rebates for medium and heavy duty ZEVs to start to get at that sector. There was also a commitment to introduce regulated targets for the medium and heavy duty sector. And some of you might have noticed in the consultation paper for the light duty ZEV regulations, one of the proposed measures to get at light duty trucks and SUVs was to increase the gross vehicle weight rating for the definition of light duty vehicles that will now be captured by the ZEV Act regulation. So that's another measure that we're taking. And then there was also a commitment in the roadmap to 2030 to develop a clean transportation action plan. And government is committed to release that plan by the end of 2023, so the end of this calendar year. And the idea behind that plan is that it would detail further actions that government will take to close that gap and to meet the transportation emissions reductions targets that are legislated in BC. So a few, some near-term things on the programming side, say midterm things on the regulatory side of things, and then some longer things looking forward to the Clean Transportation Action Plan.
Next question, does the ministry do anything to track back orders for EVs from the dealers? This would give you a perspective of the actual demand for EVs given the industry, other than Tesla inability to meet demand.
We haven't tracked that specifically for BC yet. What we do now is the federal government, so Transport Canada does a it's not really tracking back orders, but they do vehicle days of supply analysis across the country that gives us a sense of essentially supply availability at dealers. We have been thinking about exactly this idea of tracking back orders or specific wait times and inquiries that dealers are getting about EVs in BC. So that's something we have on our long list of studies to do. I'm not sure when we'll get to it, but it is, it's something that's of interest to us.
Okay, and the last question is, uptake at condos has been fairly poor. Recent announcements from province indicate only 50 votes needed to get condo associations to deal with putting chargers in condo parkades. Do you expect more pressures put on these privately owned only apartments and condos? These folks need a place to charge. Are all apartments and condos required by code to put chargers in based on number of parking spaces?
No, so the EV Ready program that we launched a couple years ago now, that's a voluntary program where apartment buildings and condos, can apply to get funds to do an EV Ready plan and make 100% of their parking stalls EV Ready. So that's voluntary, it's not required. The announcements that came out, I think last week or a couple of weeks ago now, on the right to charge legislation, that starts to get more at the requirement side of things. And so in that legislation, one of the requirements is that strata buildings have an EV Ready or EV assessment in place, and then it also reduced the voting threshold for stratas to approve expenditures related to EV charging stations. So we're starting to make some segue into those challenges in the condo and the apartment market. I'd say in our EV Ready program, we're getting a lot of interest from apartment buildings and condos to participate in that program and, prepare their buildings essentially to support the increasing EV owners who are living in those spaces.
Right, and I'll hop on that for just a bit and comment. I think most municipalities, most of BC's municipalities have requirements that new builds all have EV charging. And what this has done inside of the strata world is they're coming to realize that, this not having EV charging is going to soon become a differentiator, whether they get a sale in their building or not. The strata world is keenly aware of this, and they are working very hard with the BC government to come up with an equitable way to backfit. But as Christina said, it's not in the legislation as yet. May not ever need to be, but because it is, it's to the interest of stratas to do it. They are protecting their owners' money that's in their building. So that's good. I want to say a couple other things, Christina. You are in the right place at exactly the right time, being in the ministry, since, BC going forward to trying to decarbonize our economy. Transportation is the low-hanging fruit. It is the thing that's easiest to do. We have a lot of other chunks of our economy that are a lot harder. And this is the way, because once you show people you can do it in electric vehicles, both governments at provincial and municipal level, they say, hey, yeah, we can do this. And people who are driving EVs go, hey, I can do all this stuff without producing carbon. What else can I do in my life to get rid of that stuff? So yeah, it's a great time to be in there. It's a perfect place to be. Also, you haven't brought it up, so I'll bring it up. I see that it's the intent of the BC government that 2027, the default option for replacement vehicles in the BC government are ZEVs. And I imagine that means if they have a gas burner that is dying on them and they can't find something else, then they'll have to do that. But if there's a ZEV option, then that has to be taken, which is great. That's part of the BC government, leading by example. So that's terrific. And, you've mentioned that it's ZEVs 100% by 2035. That was only recently shifted. Some of you may not have recognized that until a couple of weeks ago, it was 2040. And I'll hazard a guess that by 2027, we may be dropping that to 2030. I'll buy a beer if it doesn't happen.
Just one?
Well, for Christina. Okay, that was terrific, Christina.
Bruce Stout here from Vancouver. I just want to congratulate you on what we've accomplished since you started this long journey. Thank you very much. 18%. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, congrats to all of you too. Like, yeah, you're definitely all part of this. I used to, in my presentations, I used to have a slide. I didn't put it up this time, but one thing I think I've learned over the years is it really takes an ecosystem to get this stuff done, and the EV owner associations were a key part of that. So yeah, congrats to everybody.
It's often said that EV owners sell more cars than the dealers do. And Bruce Stout, who just commented in particular, personally has sold more cars than probably any car dealer. Because he goes, talks to people, takes them to the dealer, negotiates. It's just, we're the ones that drive it, not the car dealers.
Yeah, it was really difficult in the early days to get the car dealers to do anything. There's an event happening on the 22nd of April, which is next weekend. I'm at the Lynn Valley Center shopping mall, and they actually approached us and they phoned us and asked us to come out. VicEVA is actually going to be in Mission, where we've been probably for the first time, and Maple Ridge will probably be the 10th or 12th time that David Cohen has gathered the troops in Maple Ridge to show people electric cars. And with what the Victoria EV Association has been doing with their EV count and all these other initiatives they've done, it just feels so good to see so many more cars on the road. Back in 2014, when we got our first, got a Tesla, and then I was driving the Nissan Leaf. And she said, we get really excited when we saw another Tesla, maybe once a week, or another electric car, period. Now she comes to a stop sign and she just counts them. They're everywhere.